Hey there, bookworms. Welcome to Pouring Over Books, a podcast where we dive into the books we love and maybe a few we didn't. I'm your host, LaShawn, and every week I'll be deep diving into what I'm reading, recommendations, and talking about all the things that we love about books. So grab your favorite coffee or tea, find a cozy spot, and let's get ready to pour over some great books together.
Happy New Year, friends. I am so glad to be back. I had a somewhat restful holiday, I guess you can say. I say that because the first week was Christmas week, and between cooking and planning and last minute shopping and driving to and from Alabama to take my mama home, I was exhausted by the time last Monday rolled around. I tried really hard to rest and not to do anything. And frankly, I need about one more week because I failed. There was always I just wanted 2 days in a row where I didn't do anything, and that never happened. I forgot that I had doctor's appointments scheduled, hair appointments scheduled, dental appointments scheduled for my son. It was just a lot of stuff that we needed to get done that I needed about one more week to do nothing. So yeah. Anyway, but here we are. And it is time for season 2 of Pouring Over Books Pod. I'm so excited. I didn't read as much as I thought I would over the break, frankly, because my brain was tired. Friends, I'm just, like I said, it was a lot, which is why I think I want to talk about my bookish goals for 2025, most anticipated books for this year, and how to read more. Okay? If you are a reader, and you've just signed up for your first Goodreads, a Storygraph challenge, I have 3 tips for you to read more this year. Number 1, set aside some dedicated reading time. That might be 15 minutes in the morning or 20 minutes before you go to bed. You can decide you want to read on your lunch break, listen to a book on your commute to work, or read while your kid is at soccer practice. Point is, have a time when you know you would get in 5 to 10 pages, because that's been one of the keys of reading more for me, is to have dedicated time, like a good 10 to 15 minutes maybe in the morning, and I always read before bed. Number 2, audiobooks, friends. Start listening. We have established last season, that the brain processes reading a book and listening to one the same way. I will link that study again in the show notes. Like I said above, if you want to read more, audiobooks are a great way to get them in. Read while working out, read while cleaning, read while driving. I mean, it will help you get in more books. And especially there's like graphic audiobooks, or the audiobooks where they have like a whole cast of characters. Those are so interactive and fun. It's like listening to a movie. Number 3, get a library card. If finances are the issue, and I hear a lot of people say that they don't want to overconsume books, that books are too expensive, get a library card. Invest in your neighborhood library. Yes, your waits will be longer for new releases, but there are tons of backlist books on the bookshelf and on the Libby app to read and to listen to. So I always recommend being a part of your library. Those 3 things alone right there should help you read more this year. So just remember, make some dedicated time. Think about start listening to audiobooks, and invest in your library. Get a library card. Okay? Now, my own bookish goals this year are to read more than fantasy and romantasy. I used to love a good mystery or a good serial killer or a good just plain old fiction book. But then COVID times happened, and all I wanted to do was escape, and escape quickly. I want to get back to reading a little bit of everything like I used to. I've added Brandon Sanderson's The Way of the King series. It's many, many books, and these are really thick books. But I've added it to my list to read this year because I do like high fantasy, because I read the Game of Thrones series before anybody else was really talking about it. So yes, I was into it. And I'm also committed to reading a lot more books by African American authors. I'm starting that with our 90s Black chick lit book club that started this month. We are reading Flyy Girl. That being said, I've made a list of my most anticipated new releases for 2025. I'm going to share 5 here, but there's an entire list of 25 titles up on the blog. If you are interested in bookmarking these books for later, don't worry. As the months come, every month I will try to remind you of the new books that's coming out that we are looking forward to. That is something that I want to do this year, is to talk about more new releases. Okay, so the top 5 books that I am anticipating for 2025, in no particular order. I should put them in like order of months. Okay, so here we go. All right, so the first book on my list is Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. It comes out on 1/14, and this is what it's about. Zelu, a disabled Nigerian writer struggling with career and personal setbacks, finds solace in writing Rusted Robots, a sci-fi epic unlike anything she's created before. Unexpectedly, the novel becomes a sensation, catapulting Zelu into literary stardom. However, this newfound fame forces her to confront the complexities of her identity, the meaning of success, and the unintended consequences of her creation as Rusted Robots begins to influence the very future it depicts. Now, she has been on my radar for quite some time as an author. She writes science fiction and fantasy, and it is technically, they call it African futurism. Afrofuturism, that is an actual genre. If you go to the African American Museum, the National African American Museum in DC, there is a whole section where they talk about it, talk about Afrofuturism, and she is in it. Her books are in it. It's that section, instead of going right, you go left, and it's in like this little room. Anyway, if you get a chance to go to the museum up there, this is a whole side note. If you get to go to that museum, please go. It is excellent. It is one of the best things that they have ever done up in DC. It's beautiful. It's heartbreaking. Just go. Anyway, okay, so we're going to move on. But anyway, yes, I am really looking forward to that. This is one of the books that I'm talking about. It checks off 2 boxes for me. It's an African American writer. Actually, she's Nigerian American. And it's also a different genre than I would usually read. So with the sci-fi / fantasy. So I'm like, this is kind of good. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to start that sometime this week. Number 2 on my list is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. Does not come out until May the 13th, but it's about the last character in the little friend group, Hendrix. My favorite. Hendrix Berry, a successful businesswoman with a fulfilling life, believes romance is a distraction. However, she's captivated by Maverick Bell. What a nice name. A charismatic tech muggle who challenges her carefully constructed world. Their forbidden attraction, why is it forbidden? Ignites a passionate affair, forcing Hendrix to confront her desire for a deeper connection and question the limits she's placed on her own happiness. When I tell you, I cannot wait until this book comes out. I cannot wait. I have been waiting for Hendrix since the first book, because she is the character of my heart. I love her. So I cannot wait for her story. This is obviously romance, but again, it checks a box for me. She's an African American writer. And even though it is romance, which is my favorite wheelhouse, I wouldn't say no to this book. Listen, I have applied for an ARC for this book, an advanced reader copy. If I get it, oh, Lord Jesus, y'all gonna hear about it. Okay. Number 3, the third book I'm looking forward to this year is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Comes out on April 1st. Abby Jimenez is an automatic must buy for me. To me, her books signal spring into summer, and I'm never really disappointed. I love how there are always Easter eggs from other characters and other books in her stories, and I've read the first chapter of this one, so I'm really looking forward to it. Samantha falls for Xavier, a stunning vet, despite his initial foot-and-mouth disease, and it was bad, y'all. Their first date is magical, but Samantha must end it due to family crisis. Devastated, she begs him to forgive her and cherish the memory. However, Their connection proves too strong to ignore. Samantha realizes that true love might not be about perfection, but about creating a life worth remembering, even amidst challenges. I love Abby Jimenez's romance novels simply because they are about more than romance. Usually, the characters are going through something, struggling something, and that story is almost the main plot over the romance, and the romance is the icing on the cake. And both characters grow. Usually it is beautiful. Sometimes it's tragic, hard, but I always enjoy those books. I come out feeling like I learned something or I read something really, really good. The fourth book on my list for 2025 is Matriarch by Tina Knowles. Comes out on April 22nd. Yes, that Tina Knowles. Matriarch by Tina Knowles Lawson is a captivating memoir that chronicles her extraordinary life journey from her childhood in 1950s Galveston to becoming the matriarch of a globally renowned family. Tina shares her triumphs and tribulations with honesty and grace. This intimate and revealing story explores themes of family, loss, love, and perseverance, offering a glimpse into the life of a remarkable woman who raised superstar children while forging her own path to success and self-discovery. I hope this is really good. I will be listening to this one because I always listen to memoirs, because especially I always listen to memoirs because to me they're easier to get through that way. And usually the person who writes it is the person who's narrating it. And I'm trying to see if she is the one who is narrating it. Oh, I can't tell. It does not say who is narrating it, but I hope she is narrating it because I'm going to listen to it. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping into glimpses of her life. I'm always in awe of Tina Knowles because, she built Destiny's Child. Oh, I'm sorry. Her and her husband, her ex-husband, they did that. So I am always interested in that story and finding out more about where she came from. Yeah. And last but not least, let's talk about the fifth book on my list, which is I had to add it. I considered putting something else, but then I would be lying to myself and to you all, and I don't do that with books. The fifth book on my list is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which comes out later on this month on 1/21. This is, of course, the third book in the Empyrean series, the wildly famous Fourth Wing series. I had not read the second book in the series. Last year when it came out, no, it didn't even come out last year. It came out the year before, because I read Fourth Wing in the summer and then Iron Flame came out in the fall. And by that time, I learned that there were 5 books in the series and I refused to read it. It pissed me off. And I had to sit with that for a while and figure out why. The problem is I've been burned by Sarah J. Maas. We have been waiting for the next book in the Avatar series for, Jesus, I don't know, 5 years now? Let me see. When was Court of Silver Flames published? 2021. It is 2025. So we have been waiting 4 years for the next book in this series. She wrote a whole new series in between, which did give us information that we needed for the next book in this series. So I can see why she needed to get that series out the way for the next book in Avatar. But okay, I'm going off on a tangent. But still, I've been waiting for 2021. And so I think last year or the year before, I had vowed not to start reading any more new series that were not complete because I didn't want to deal with this. I broke my own rule late last year and early this year, but only because the one that I'm doing, I was like, okay, it'll be all right. And I decided to go ahead and read the second book, even though they're going to be 5 books. And in this series, I decided to go ahead and read because they are putting them out yearly, even though they're going to be 5. So there are 2 more after this one. So that means 2026, 2027. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. That gives me something to look forward to. Even though it's funny, I'm struggling in my reread of Fourth Wing, not because it's not good, but just because I've read it before and I really want to move on, but I know these books and I have to refresh my memory before I move on to the second one. And plus, I'm going to have to read the third one or else I'm going to get spoiled on these internet streets because people, people just spoil everything. So I'm going to have to just go ahead and read it about Violet Sorrengail and, her shadow daddy, Zayden. Yeah, I'm going to have to read it. Okay. So those are my top 5. There are, of course, many, many other books coming out this year. I could divide them into categories, but frankly, my most anticipated romance list is humongous. And so is my most anticipated fantasy list. But we only have so much time in this episode, friends. So I do plan on talking more about romance and fantasy books this year. I just had a chit chat with my friend Emily yesterday about coming on the pod and talking about romance novels because she loves romance as much as I do. And I figure that some of the conversations we have amongst ourselves, you all need to hear. So we will be talking about romance because I feel like romance novels are so, they're more than about just smut, empowering for some women. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about just romance in general. We want to talk about our faves, our tropes that we love and like. We've got a whole bunch of things to talk about. Yeah. And fantasy too. So romance will probably be on the docket about once a month this year, simply because I love it and this is my podcast. And plus, like I said, even people who say that, like Emily said yesterday, people who say they don't like romance have not found the right romance novel. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. All right. All right. That's enough of that aside. Let's get to what is currently going on in my life. Okay. So currently, you remember when I said I would never do 75 hard again? Well, silly me signed up to do it again. And I quickly realized that me and my body meant that shit. Like I'm not doing 75 hard again. I am now doing 75 soft and I am perfectly fine with that. Plus, I recognized pretty quickly that I was going to burn myself out with all these goals and aspirations that I had in the first 14 days of the year if I did not slow down and put something aside, which is growth, my friends, growth. So I pared down 75 hard to 75 soft, which is 1 workout a day versus 2, and move some of my goals to the second half of the year and recognize that everything doesn't have to start on day 1. So what I did was I sat down, I broke up my goals into quarterly and then monthly. And now I'm working on systems to make sure it actually gets done because that is always my problem. Not the planning of the goals, it's the actual implementation. So this year I recognized that I needed systems to help me get things done. And I am already breathing easier. Like I am going to have a system for this podcast that I'm not putting in place today. But I recognized this morning when I woke up in a panic and said, oh my God, I did not record a podcast because I didn't have a system in place. But that's okay, friends. We're going to get it together in 2025. I'm going to get it together. All right. Currently not looking forward to snow. Friends, Atlanta might get snow this weekend. I don't want it. I remember snow again in 2014 when people abandoned their cars or slept in them in the highway or got stuck in the highway for 8 hours trying to get home. I remember husband left work earlier when it first started snowing. And I remember he got my son. My son the boy was 2014. Ooh, he was like 4-ish, 5-ish. So my husband had left work early before it got really bad, before people realized it was getting bad. And he had picked up my son. So he was home. I, on the other hand, was stuck up in Sandy Springs. And I live in Decatur. If you know anything about Atlanta, you know about traffic, you know that's horrible. So getting out of my parking lot at work took an hour. And then getting from the street to the highway took like another hour. when usually all of this took me a good 10 minutes. Actually, for me, once I got on the highway, because it was still early, when I got on the highway, no one was on there. People in Atlanta cannot drive in snow because they don't know about it. I am from the north. I'm from DC, from the DC area. So I know how to drive in snow. So I got on the highway. People were scared to get on the highway, but everybody was on the streets. So I got on the highway and crept home at like 20 miles per hour. But I got home. It took me like an hour, but I got home. So it took me 3 hours to get home, but it took some people 8. Some people never made it home. Some people slept in their cars. And then I remember like a couple of years before that, when my son was really little, I got stuck at the hospital when I was still a nurse. I got stuck at the hospital because we couldn't leave because there were no nurses coming in. So I'm like, y'all forget. Y'all be like, oh, it's so pretty. I mean, I just don't plan on going nowhere. I'm like, but there are plenty of people who do not work at home. You know what I mean? There are plenty of people who have to go out in that mess. And I do admit the problem that time was that Atlanta didn't close. And they closed the schools in the middle of the damn day. That was a problem. So, yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't want it. Don't want it. Like if it happened on a Saturday, I'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. Sunday, sure. But during the week, child, no. Atlanta doesn't do bad weather. We barely function in the rain. Anyway. Currently reading, I'm currently trying to finish Daughter of No Worlds by Clarissa Barnhart for my fantasy romantic book club that meets tomorrow that I don't know if I'm going to make because of the weather, because it is cold here, but I'm going to really try. I am about 70% through that book. So, and I've got it on Audible and I've got it on Kindle. Some way, somehow, I will get through it. And I'm reading Flyy Girl for the Pouring Over Books Club that you can still join if you wish. The link will be in the show notes, or you can go over to LaShawnWills.substack.com to learn more about that. Yes. And for book club people who are listening, expect an email from me sometime today. Sorry, I am behind. Anyway, that is it, friends. Trying to think, do I have anything else to say? No. But remember, if you like the podcast, to make sure you share the love. If you enjoy listening, I'd love for you to follow me on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. And if you have a minute, please consider leaving a review or sharing the pod on social media. It truly helps me connect with other book lovers. Okay, friends, that is it for today. I will talk to you next week. I cannot remember right now what our topic is next week, but I will be back. All right, friends. Happy reading. Talk soon. Bye-bye.